All right, so we're diving into Dune again.
But not just any Dune. We are tackling God, Emperor of Dune.
All right.
That one book in the series where everything's different thousands of years later and the fate of humanity rests on, well...
sandworms and some really, really tough choices.
Right.
This one is going to be a wild ride.
It is.
I know you're familiar with the Dune universe already. We've got Arrakis.
The spice, those iconic sandworms. But...
trust me, 3,500 years is a long time.
That's a long time.
Even in this huge world of space opera,
sure,
we're dealing with a completely different Arrakis.
Okay.
For starters, gone are the endless dunes.
They've given way to this strange landscape full of plants shaped by...
The God Emperor himself?
Okay.
And who is this God Emperor?
It's Leto II Atreides, you know?
The son of Paul Atreides from the original Dune.
Right.
But he's not just some ruler hanging out in a palace.
Yes, sir.
Imagine a human being, right? Fused with a sandworm.
Okay.
That's Leto II, a scary mix of human intellect and sandworm power.
Yeah.
Ruling everything with an iron fist.
And that's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, because we're not just talking about a change in scenery.
Right.
Herbert uses this huge time jump and the total transformation of Leto and the planet
to explore these profound questions about power and evolution and what it means to be human.
Okay, so we've got Leto II, our sandworm human hybrid God Emperor.
Ruling this changed universe.
But what's the story here? What are the big events in this book?
Well, the Wikipedia excerpts you sent over paint a picture of an empire that's on the brink. Leto's reign, while it seems stable, is challenged from all sides.
Okay.
Remember the great houses from the first Dune book?
Those noble families always fighting for power.
Yeah.
They're still around.
Lurking in the shadows, whispering about overthrowing the God Emperor.
And it goes deeper than just politics.
Leto's own family is a big part of this web of intrigue.
Right.
We've got Siona, a descendant of Leto's twin sister Ghanima.
Now, Siona's a force to be reckoned with. She becomes, like...
a key figure in this resistance against Leto.
Okay.
She's not just some pawn in a power struggle.
Right.
She represents this deep-seated human need for freedom.
This rebellion against even the, I don't know,
most benevolent tyranny.
And that's where the moral lines start to blur.
Because you see, Leto isn't your typical power-hungry dictator.
He really believes that his iron-fisted rule, what he calls the Golden Path,
is the only way to save humanity from itself.
Wait, hold.
His rule is supposed to be a good thing.
That's the million solar system question, isn't it?
And it's something we're going to get into more deeply later on.
Because Leto's Golden Path
is built on some
unsettling, and some might even say terrifying ideas.
Okay, now my curiosity is officially piqued.
But before we get into the philosophy of the God Emperor,
let's talk about some of the other players in this
grand cosmic game.
Sure.
The Wikipedia article mentioned Duncan Idaho Gulas.
And if I remember correctly, a Gula is basically a clone, right?
Exactly.
Remember the Twi'lexu?
Those master geneticists from the previous books?
Uh-huh.
Well, it turns out they've been busy.
Leto has them churning out these Duncan Idaho Gulas.
Each one physically identical to his loyal swordmaster from thousands of years ago.
Now, why would Leto want a bunch of clones of one guy running around?
Especially after all this time.
It's not like he needs more soldiers or something, right?
That's where it gets interesting.
Each Duncan Gula is this fascinating study in nature versus nurture.
They're physically identical.
But their personalities and their memories are shaped by what they go through.
Leto uses them as tools.
As extensions of his will.
But he also seems to, I don't know,
crave their companionship, you know? It's almost as if he's trying to, I don't know, rebuild a connection to his past.
But in this, you know, kind of messed up way that only a God Emperor could.
Yeah, it makes you think about the ethics of it all.
You know, all this cloning.
Sure.
But then again,
in the world of Dune, I guess there are bigger things to worry about than clone rights.
You got that right.
Speaking of bigger fish to fry.
The Wikipedia article also mentioned this ambassador, Heishui Nori.
Right.
Was her story.
Chiwanuri.
She's sent by the Ixians.
Those masters of technology, you know. And cunning to, well...
to supposedly create a bond with Leto.
I see.
It's this complicated game.
Political maneuvering and, you know...
humanity's fate is hanging in the balance.
So she's basically trying to manipulate the God Emperor.
That sounds risky.
Everything about God Emperor of Dune is risky.
That's what makes it so captivating.
Yeah.
Herbert keeps us guessing constantly.
Questioning everyone's motives, even Leto's.
This is where those deeper themes come in, right?
I mean, we've talked about this changed Arrakis, the Duncan Idaho Gulas.
and all this political intrigue.
Right.
But there's something, I don't know.
Deeper going on here.
Yeah, God, Emperor of Dune isn't just some, like, adventure story.
Yeah.
It's this deep dive into what power is, evolution, the human condition.
Okay.
And one of the most interesting parts
Is how Herbert uses this thing with Leto's golden path.
to challenge what we think about what it means to be a ruler.
So let's talk about this golden path.
You mentioned earlier that it's not as simple as Leto just grabbing power.
Exactly.
Leto can see the future. He has prescience.
And not just a few steps ahead,
Uh-huh.
but across, like, millennia.
Wow.
He says he sees this.
Terrifying future for humanity.
Oh,
One where we don't make it, where we're totally annihilated.
From some giant space lasers, interdimensional conquerors. Like, give me the details.
You know, Herbert's intentionally vague about the specifics.
And that's part of what makes the book so great.
Okay.
What Leto sees matters less than how he reacts to it.
He believes that the only way to keep humanity safe from this awful fate,
Is through total control.
a really structured society
Right.
where essentially,
No one has free will.
see, that's where I get tripped up.
I get that he's trying to save everyone.
But to just take away their freedom like that,
Right.
even if it's for the greater good,
It just seems wrong.
that's the moral dilemma at the heart of God Emperor of Dune.
It's the question that makes this book still important and thought-provoking today.
Can you really justify giving up individual freedom for the sake of everyone else?
Well,
I can see both sides.
okay.
On the one hand, Leto's golden path basically turns his empire into a gilded cage.
He controls everything from having kids to, like,
Who gets what resources?
yeah.
It's got to suck for the people living under that.
But here's the other thing.
Leto's prescience isn't perfect?
But it's shown him a ton of possible futures.
Okay.
And he says that the golden path, this path of absolute control,
Is the only one where we survive?
so it's
The lose-lose situation.
either humanity is wiped out,
Or we live under this tyrant.
even if he is trying to save us.
Not necessarily.
Remember, this is Dune.
Things are rarely black and white.
Leto's golden path isn't just about control.
It's about pushing humanity to evolve.
To break free from, our self-destructive tendencies.
Wait, what do you mean?
Leto gets something about us, about human nature.
He calls it the Great Convention.
Okay.
It's this, like, inherent need in us
Mhm.
to expand, to fight, to push the limits.
And while that can lead to great things,
It can also lead to war and destruction and, like I said,
extinction.
okay, I see where you're going with this.
Leto's golden path isn't just about keeping us alive.
It's about making us change, grow beyond all of that destructive stuff.
Exactly.
He's playing a dangerous game.
A really long game, one that spans generations.
He knows his rule can't last forever.
And he plans for that.
Is that where the scattering comes in?
Is that where the scattering comes in?
I remember reading about that.
This mass exodus of humanity out into the far reaches of space after Leto dies.
You got it.
It's Leto's goal.
Is to use his reign as this forcing function
This time of forced stagnation.
to propel humanity into this new era of diversity and adaptation.
The scattering isn't random.
It's the result of his golden path, a carefully created explosion of human potential.
Okay, so Leto II, the God Emperor, this sandworm human hybrid,
Spends thousands of years manipulating everything.
shaping humanity's future according to his, like,
Grand plan. It's
mind-blowing.
It really is. It's a testament to Herbert's imagination.
The fact that he could create a character this complex,
This morally ambiguous that we
Yeah.
are still debating his actions decades later.
and that's what I love about God Emperor of Dune.
It's not just some, space adventure.
It's like,
It's like a philosophical puzzle box.
totally.
But let's talk about how Herbert actually shows us all this in the book.
Okay.
The Wikipedia article mentions something about Leto's first-person narrative.
What's up with that?
Yeah. The narrative structure in God Emperor of Dune.
Is just as interesting as the plot. Herbert mostly uses Leto's point of view,
Okay.
which gives us this amazing view into the mind of this being.
Who basically exists outside of time.
So we're not just reading about what Leto's doing.
We're like in his head,
Exactly.
experiencing his thoughts and why he does things.
We're right there with him.
Wow.
Remember, he's seen these potential futures.
All the paths humanity could go down.
And he chose the one he thinks is best.
Even if it meant,
Becoming this tyrant.
a God Emperor for thousands of years,
And what's even more interesting,
is that we see these little bits of doubt.
even regret
Really?
in Leto's thoughts.
He questions if he's doing the right thing.
Thinks about what humanity has given up to survive this long.
He gets the tragedy of his golden path.
That's what makes him so compelling.
There's this mix of total certainty.
But also this quiet introspection.
Yeah.
He's not some, like,
Mustache-twirling villain
right.
who just loves being powerful.
He's conflicted.
He's struggling with these impossible choices.
We've been talking about Leto a lot.
But what about the other characters, like...
Siona,
Oh, yeah.
his rebellious relative.
She's a big part of this, right?
Absolutely. Siona's not just some rebel.
She's crucial to Leto's whole plan.
Okay.
You see, Leto knows his golden path has a problem.
Oh, what's that?
He calls himself the blinding spice,
He realizes that by being in control for so long,
shaping humanity's fate.
uh-huh,
He's creating this, like, bottleneck in how they evolve.
they depend on him too much.
On his guidance.
So he becomes the very thing he was trying to stop.
This single point of failure
Exactly.
that something happens to him.
Yeah. Humanity's back to square one.
That's why Siona is so important.
Leto made her so he can't see her future.
She's like this wild card in his plan.
Wow.
He needs someone to break free from his control
Someone to challenge him.
and make sure humanity has a future after he's gone.
And that's where the stolen journals come in.
Yes,
You mentioned them earlier.
these mysterious documents that kind of hint at an even deeper layer to Leto's plan.
Its stolen journals are like clues.
Left by Leto, too, like...
Guide Siona and others to really understand the golden path.
Okay.
They suggest that Leto's endgame is even more complex than we think.
So even with all his control,
He's leaving room for free will.
for someone to, like...
Challenge him and make sure humanity doesn't rely on him too much.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's a balancing act.
Between control and, well, chaos.
Leto knows that to really evolve,
You need both.
he's creating this pressure cooker, right? But he needs someone like Siona to...
Let off some steam, make sure it doesn't explode.
Right.
And that explosion is the scattering.
when humanity is thrown across the universe.
Exactly. It's chaotic.
Unpredictable.
But it's the peak of Leto's golden path.
The final test to see if humanity has learned anything from him.
So after all this time, after thousands of years,
After giving up his own humanity to save ours,
Leto II, the God Emperor, he finally lets go.
he leaves it all in our hands.
For better or worse.
We started this whole thing talking about Arrakis.
And the sandworm human ruler.
And we had so many questions.
It was a lot.
We talked about power and evolution.
And what it means to even be human.
As we finish our deep dive into God Emperor of Dune,
The biggest question I have is this. Leto II believed he was saving us from ourselves.
but did he actually make a future without tyranny?
Or did he just create new ways for us to be controlled?
That's what I'll be thinking about long after I finish this book.